So I decided I had to move beyond the work I'd done in copyright for two reasons. Number one, I was struck by the large number of young leaders who this movement was encouraging. And more people were coming into the movement and becoming articulate spokesmen for the movement. And it seemed less necessary that I continue to be part of that. But number two, it struck me that the gap between the progress we had made in the culture and the progress we had not made in the political process pointed to a more fundamental problem. And that was that the political process was really stuck inside of an economy of influence that wouldn't allow it to respond to this evolution in understanding, because so much of political decisions get directed by campaign funding. And so what I decided was that I wanted to begin to do work in this, on this problem in particular, recognizing that it wasn't just copyright legislation that was being held up by this system of, or this economy of influence, but it was literally every single important issue you can identify. Reform gets blocked in those contexts because of precisely the same type of dynamic. And so it seemed to me that not just for copyright, but for all of these issues, we needed to strike at the source of the problem, and campaign finance, in my view, is the source. Well, I think we need to relearn some lessons that I think at other earlier stages of time we understood. You know, I think that we certainly learned in the law the importance of maintaining separation and independence of legal decision process and financial influences. Not so much because necessarily we believe a judge would always be influenced by money inside of a campaign, but we know that the public would be skeptical of the judge's decision if the public saw that type of relationship. And that's the same thing that I think we have to relearn in the context of of research done by doctors. It's the same thing we have to learn about academics. We have to just recognize when people see money involved, they view the activity differently. And so there are plenty of examples of institutions that voluntarily get this and do something about it. My favorite example is Wikipedia, which refuses to take ads. Given the size of that site, it's probably a $100 million decision to refuse to take ads. Obviously, as a member of the Wikipedia community, on one hand, I would love if they had $100 million in resources to do whatever they'd want to do in the world. But on the other hand, I understand their decision not to do this because they don't want people to view Wikipedia as just advertising fluff. And so they recognize the need for that separation in order to earn trust of the public. And I just think more institutions need to recognize that and implement or practice that recognition so that the institutions can maintain trust, which is essential to their survival. I've come to the view that we need an extraordinary push to get Congress to adopt the kind of reforms Congress needs to adopt. So our framers left open the possibility of an out-of-Washington process that could be appealed to when Washington has become captured. And that's exactly what's happened now. Washington has become captured. And so we begin to push in state legislatures to get legislatures to call for a convention, and the more that call for a convention, the greater the pressure on DC would be. So even if we never got to the call, I think that every new state that makes that resolution puts pressure on Washington to change. Well, the most important thing to do immediately is to put pressure on your representative to co-sponsor the Fair Elections Now Act, which is the best bill right now to try to produce citizen-funded elections. And if you go to our site, fixcongressfirst.org, you can see a set of tools that people can use to identify where your representative is and to call or to email representative. We've also asked people to make a pledge not to give any money to any candidate who hasn't committed to citizen-funded elections. So we found it's easy, that the internet taught us it's easy to get people to do what they already want to do. So most people don't want to give money to politicians. So here we've given them a public regarding reason not to give money to politicians. But those two steps immediately to begin to build the movement to put pressure on Congress, I think, are the essential first steps.